Okay, good evening, and welcome
Now you're
to
gone.
another episode of Reptile News. I think we just had our guest drop out with the internet bandwidth over in South Africa, but we'll get him back. We'll get him back. Just if he's out there, just here he comes, here he comes. Welcome to Reptile News. My name is Maynard Bornman, and with me tonight I've got Arno Naude from South Africa, or beautiful South Africa. I'm from South Africa originally. Been out of the country for about 20 years now, but I've known Arno for many, many years before I left South Africa. And I don't want to hold them up too long. We don't know how strong it looks like the connections.
He's back.
We're back, yeah. So he's just been unmuted. So now he's
You muted me.
yeah. There we go. You're back. let's just let's just go straight into it. Let's not.
I'm on mute.
And we've swapped areas now on the screen. So, but that's okay. I can fix that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Good evening, Arno. Welcome to Reptile News. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. You guys?
Yeah, I'm good. This is Colin, my usual wingman down there. Sorry, we're just trying to.
G'day.
Yeah, I just wanted
You
to.
look green.
Now I'm not.
Yeah, he's in the wrong. He's in the wrong spot now. We're not gonna worry too
There
much.
we go. Now's got a decent background again.
Yeah, there we go. So, welcome to the show, Arno. I think we got reshuffled in the layout of the screen before when you dropped out, but that's okay. Now maybe you can give us some background. I've known you, so I'll tell people the story about it. The first time because I can remember, and I was thinking about it this afternoon. I can remember that clearly. Now I think I was 16, and I got your number from some. I think Wolf Harker gave me your number. Wolf Harker was the old curator of herpetology at the Transvaal Museum in Pretoria when it was still called Pretoria. I think it's got a different name. Tshwane, I think. Is it Tshwane? I think so.
Yeah.
And he gave me your phone number at one of the East Rand Herpetological Society meetings. And I think it was a weekday or something, like a Wednesday night or something. And I still, like it was I was 16, so it was still early bedtimes, And I rang you and you answered the phone, and I must have sat, and for a kid that just liked reptiles, I couldn't believe that. I hung up that phone afterwards, and I thought, I can't believe that you tolerated my my chatter. And you deal with that many people that you must have, that to me is a sign of you're going to get a lot of plugs tonight, because I think the world, I really keep you in high esteem in my reptile keeping history, and I can't, it takes a certain type of person to give people that time, and you still do that. I see a lot of your posts on, you're still very involved in the reptile industry, and as long as I've known you, you've always given your time in the pursuit of people understanding what we love better, and you just make time, like you did for me that Wednesday night on a landline. I remember eventually I was sitting on the ground with one of those twirly, the cables that came out of the old phone stuff, and we were just, and you just had time, and for me, it sounded like you had every answer in the book, and that's great, and I think we don't get that anymore. The world of social media is very it's not so interactive the way that it used to be in those days. So I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, and I'm hoping that it looks like the line's holding it nice and stable, and I can only say good things about the time that I've known you. But I want to give you the stage now, and if you can just give us a bit of a background, where everybody's got a story, and everybody has the first reptile that triggered that, that the Philippe de Vergelet always says there's a gateway reptile that started for all of us, and it just takes over our life. Where did it start for you, mate?
Yeah, mine started with a common egg eater. What happened was I had guinea pigs, and some dogs came into the yard and killed my guinea pigs. And my dad said, "You'll get me a pet that the dogs aren't going to attack." And I ended up with this egg eater, which I had for a good couple of years. And then once it starts, then you become the snake guy because you have a snake. So everyone comes to you for advice. And when you don't know, you've either got to lie or go look it up. So you say, you know what, I'll get back to you. And then you go look it up. And that way you learn and you learn and you learn. And then when you do get a chance to speak to somebody like Wolf or one of the older chaps, you sit there and you, like a sponge, you just absorb what you can, because you know somebody's going to ask you the same thing, because that's what you had in mind as well. So it just started like that. And this was way before the internet, before there were books on husbandry. So you have to learn what you can and adapt the fish, the people that keep fish, their tools and their equipment, because there was no reptile equipment. Nobody kept reptiles. And in South Africa at that time, to get a permit, we're gentlemen around here. We don't ask ages, but how many we run a discreet service. How many years ago was this? I mean, what decade are we talking about when all this started happening? Early 1970s.
Oh, okay, a little bit before my time.
It was a while ago. Yeah. So anyway, at that time, we couldn't keep indigenous snakes without a permit. And to get a permit, they wouldn't give the permit. So it was one of those stupid situations. We allowed to keep exotics, but you can't import exotics. So when you apply to import, they say, we'll give you the permit. You must just get a veterinary permit. And then the veterinary department decide they're not giving permits for reptiles. So there was this loophole. Once the animal had come into the country, then it was legal. Because the people ask you, where did you get it? And you say, oh, so-and-so dropped it off here. There was no way of finding out. So there was a lot of smuggling happening at the time. But the reason for that was we didn't have anything else. So then we managed to get our indigenous stuff on permit, but that was also a nightmare. I was involved with it right in the beginning, and we didn't want people going out and just collecting what they could and selling them. Now in South Africa, we've got 9 provinces. One of them still allows that. You can go out and go catch a green mamba tomorrow and you can sell it to a pet shop the next day and nobody cares. And in other provinces, you can't keep anything, not indigenous, not exotic, unless you have a permit and you can't get it, kind of situation. So it's still pretty messed up, and in some parts very similar to Australia, where you're allowed to do certain things, but other things you can't do, and there's no logical reason why something like that would happen.
But there were stages though. I mean, we can dive into the way that the different governments do this type of stuff. But it was only until I remember, because when I remember when I was a young lad, when I was that over that period when I rung you, everybody was keeping reptiles. They were just keeping them illegally. If it was because the exotics were so expensive that you just couldn't, and when you were starting with reptiles, we all kept house snakes and leopard tortoises and things like that, and I remember, people keep it without people just don't care, especially in a place like South Africa, very few people worry about keeping a tortoise without a license or a house snake without a license, or a lot of people keep venomous snakes without a license, and then when they get bitten, it's a major issue, because then you get in trouble for being bitten and for keeping them without a license. But I remember it was far more enforced in the 80s, 90s. When did they sort of relax a bit? What was the process to get them to relax a little bit about, or was that a timely thing, or what happened?
Okay, what happened was some of us allegedly got involved in some slightly less than legal methods of getting snakes in and out of the country. And allegedly some of us ended up in court, and the magistrate gave me a warning, and he said, well, I probably won't see you again. So cool, and I left. And I decided that's bullshit. From now on, we will be able to import legally. And it took me probably about 7 years in total researching why we can't import. And I used that information and eventually went to the state vet and put everything out and said to, listen, here it is, a document like this. This is how we can import, how it can be legal, how we won't spread disease. They were complaining about a disease called equine encephalomyelitis, which affects the horse racing industry. So all the horse racing people had the money, and the vets were looking after them and they didn't really give a damn about us. And eventually, when I managed to prove that within 21 days of quarantine at 26 degrees or higher, the virus burns itself out, they said, okay, let's make it 30 days, 26 degrees, you can import. And then we started importing.
But that was
things were great.
Sorry to interrupt you. Was that not the iguanas that they were worried? That was the iguanas that triggered that, though.
It was everything. It was iguanas. Okay. Iguanas were the ones that they said carried salmonella and this disease.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, let's be honest, your egg tray has got more salmonella than most iguanas. Yeah. And you generally don't clean your lizard water bowl in when you've got your baby's bottles in there, you know. Yeah. People do that. They're stupid. But I mean, I've had salmonella poisoning twice, both times from rats. I've never had it from snakes.
Yeah,
I spend hours in the snake room eating and drinking and whatever. If your animals are clean, you don't get it. Salmonella is not really a problem. But this was one of the things. You're going to get salmonellosis and you're going to get this equine encephalomyelitis. Eventually, when I proved to them, you know, it's not such an issue, then they allowed us to import.
Yeah.
And then the guys were importing like crazy. And then they realized, oh, hell, we've got to stop this.
Yeah.
So then they came out with the alien invasives. And everything was an alien invasive, including stupid things. Boolean's pythons were going to become invasive. I mean,
tell what. So let's just keep this sort of. Let's just give sort of a time frame. Like which years were this in? When was this about?
Okay, the imports were allowed in the early 90s, and then sort of like mid 2000s, they started with this alien invasive stuff, and eventually about 5 years ago, it was finally enacted. Okay. So now we're not allowed to keep carpet pythons because they're going to become invasive.
Yeah, you've told me about that. Yeah. But which is like, I mean,
pythons, come on, it's bullshit.
So yeah, but I can understand. Like I can understand in a place like South Africa where the government is inept. You know, it's like it's the levels of uneducation, like people not being educated, and you know they just don't know better. So they need to fabricate stuff to keep themselves busy. You know, you sort of.
Okay, what's the difference between us and Australia then? Because you have exactly the same shit as what we've had.
Yeah, well,
and are your people just stupid or what?
No. It's the government. Let's just clarify. It's the government. We're talking about the government and the way they do stuff. Yes. I don't know. We've spent hours talking about, you know, why is it such a big deal to export? Because let's be honest. You know, there are things that I'd love to keep. I'd love to keep chameleons. I'd love to keep them because I love chameleons. Yeah.
And tortoises as well.
That's
something you don't have in Australia. You know? So it would be nice to have something which is different. And if it escapes, it's not going to crossbreed with any of your tortoises because you don't have any.
Of course.
Same with the chameleons. You know, chameleon escapes. What's going to mate with a bearded dragon? I mean, come on.
The thing is, I think though they base their whole idea about illegal exotic reptiles on the fact, though, that, you know, of the toads that they actually introduced.
They made a prime mistake there.
You know, the toads the government introduced that into the environment here. And
there's only one species that Australia ever imported that was not a screw up, and that was the dung beetles, which were actually produced in Pretoria. I went to the facility in 1975, where they produced the dung beetles to send to Australia. But you take the rest, foxes, camels, horses, cane toads, cats, whatever, all that's hares, all that stuff was imported by the government and was protected, and now it's become a problem. So who made the mistake? Is it the guys that keep them, or is it the government that actually protected them because they wanted something to do? So that doesn't make sense to me. There's so many species that we know do not become invasive. I mean, you take even the most common snake in the world, take a corn snake.
Yeah.
Are they invasive across the whole of the US? No, they're not. Yeah. But they occur there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
of course,
you know, when you get to the point where a government says to you they will become invasive, but they have no proof, then I start to worry, because then they shouldn't be in the position where they are. And if they can't get a job, then, you know, don't go and become a government official. Go do something else. Drive a taxi or something.
Yeah, well, I guess we could talk about that the whole night. But so let's delve a little bit into the situation. So when I left South Africa, now we've had this discussion a few times, and a few years back we haven't really talked to each other as much as we used to, a few years back. But where did I left in early 2000? I think 2000, and I know then that there was a couple of quarantine stations where guys could. Natal has always been open. Natal is sort of on the east coast of South Africa, like the lower east, like the east coast is about 6 hours drive, 7 hours drive from Johannesburg, where I grew up, and just that short trip, you can suddenly keep whatever you want. Was it? What could you not endangered indigenous? You can keep gaboon adders and things like
and
that.
Pythons.
Yeah,
It's only those two. Yeah.
But you had guys down there importing, having quarantine stations, and they were importing stuff, and that was sort of the gateway into South Africa. Now there's a few of them. I mean, when did that happen? So when did it start to filter into? When did people start to? What did they need to do to convince the other provinces? Was it with the change of guard, with the new was the new government that came into power more open to that, or how did that filter inland?
Okay, we've got to take a step back. The original quarantine facilities that you speak of in KZN Natal, they were allowed to import snakes, but the snakes had to stay in quarantine for 2 generations, which we know is bullshit, and nobody knew when they disappeared and didn't. So that was where the main imports were done, because that province would allow the import, and they would allow the import for 2 generations to be kept there.
Yeah.
Then after this change that I managed to get them to change the legislation, we could import into other provinces.
Yeah.
So a few of them popped up, some of them have closed down, but it's basically an insect-proof facility with a light that will zap any insects that come in from outside, and double mesh on the windows so the mosquitoes can't get in. Because the big problem is it's the mosquitoes that carry them. However, we don't have the mosquito in South Africa that carries equine encephalomyelitis. So it's kind of stupid. But I wasn't going to push my luck. If they said you can have them and just 30 days quarantine, that's great.
Yeah, of course.
So that is how more and more of the quarantine facilities popped up. But now that we have to do a risk assessment because they're going to become invasive and all this rubbish, we have less of these quarantine facilities actually being used. So there's probably about 6 to 10 in South Africa that do allow the import of reptiles, because we import a lot of birds and fish and all that other stuff. Birds go into quarantine, and so do small mammals. So there's a lot of that happening, but the guys who run those facilities aren't always reptile guys. Now, they're not allowed to allow other people in the quarantine because that breaks the whole chain of sterility or whatever crap they've got. So now you've got to find a guy who doesn't know how to look after chameleons to suddenly look after chameleons for 30 days.
Wasn't it also at a specific temperature they needed? You said, I might have missed
26 degrees and higher. Yeah.
And certain but certain species, like some of your montane, like I don't know, was there many, did they ever import many cold like what do you call it, temperate animals that needed the cooler climate?
No.
Okay.
The thing is, some of them you would prefer to keep fairly cool. If you look at things like the emerald tree boas and that sort of stuff, they prefer it a bit cooler. Yep. So what we do with them is we put them on the ground. So it's a concrete base, and we keep them moist, and they sort of get cold below the 26 degrees that you're actually trying to keep the air temperature. So, but they also come from areas where you don't find the disease. So it's actually irrelevant. Any animals that die in quarantine have to be autopsied, and that gets given, and then they decide whether they will allow them out or not. And so far, I don't know of any diseases that have come in. You guys have more diseases in your little island that is quarantined from everything, including a lawnmower. And you guys have 5 reptile viruses?
Yeah, we've got a few. It is.
And we don't have them. So where's the problem? Is it really the reptiles coming in, or isn't it? And you guys are allowed to import birds, am I correct?
Yes. That's one of the comments here. One of the comments here said, Vinny said, we're allowed to, that's, I just don't get it. We're allowed to keep all exotic, I think there's a list of exotic birds are exempt from permits. But indigenous
Yeah.
birds, so you can keep
Gotta have a
macaws,
permit for an indigenous bird.
keep macaws, African greys, all that stuff. Yeah, you just buy them and
Adults.
trade. But an
You want
exotic
a
reptile,
coggy, you want a galah, you got to get a permit.
yeah, and they shoot the things, you know. So I mean,
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, throughout the world, you've always got these stupid things like, America's got the Lacey Act. They're not allowed to have certain animals. If you get caught there with a Fijian banded iguana, they will lock you up. But they've got color morphs of them breeding in Europe. So do they really think someone's going to Fiji and stealing them there? I mean, bullshit. That doesn't happen.
No.
So one of the prime examples is the Angolan dwarf python.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you remember in your time, Namibia was still Southwest Africa, and it was part of South Africa.
Yeah.
And they had to issue the permits for these things. And Namibia did not allow the export of Angolan dwarf pythons. I think there were 2 or 3 exported ever. They went to either Houston or Dallas, and apparently one of them came from Angola. So I'm not sure on that. That was like the early 70s. I wasn't involved in that. Then probably about 20 or 30 or so were smuggled out of the country. And they ended up at collections around the world. Now, if you want an Angolan dwarf python, you go pay $500 and you buy a multi-generation captive bred one. Do you know how many people are still going to Namibia to go and steal from the wild?
No.
Zip. So, sometimes it makes sense to rather make it available. You guys have the rough-scaled python. How many have been captured? Something like 10 or something?
It was a small, I think 6 or 7 at first. I think 6 or 7 originally, and then there's hundreds of them.
What do they cost now?
I don't think they breed them anymore.
I like
cost less than
$150, $200.
Yeah, they're 25.
They cost less than the fuel to drive there to go look for another one. So
and originally
conservation at the end of the day.
Yeah, and originally they cost 25. I think 25,000 each.
It was 25,000 a pair or individual.
A pair was a pair. It was a
I
pair.
think it was a pair.
It is crazy.
But I mean, that's also another prime example of what actually should be happening around the world, is where you have something like that, breed the hell out of it. Okay, let's take on Pelonese python. Nobody's breeding them. So, yes, sure, give it to specific people and tell them, go breed this, find out how it breeds, why it breeds. We've got sun gazers, same thing. Nobody here can breed them. Give them to somebody and say, breed the damn things. And then once you've bred them, there's no demand anymore.
Yeah, I think that
nobody
Gavin
catches wild iguanas anymore because they're bred in farms by the thousands.
Yeah, I think Gavin Bedford's having quite a lot.
Started selling them now, 17 grand a pair or something like that.
Yeah, for own pellies, and it's just a matter of time before they. I don't know. They've been really carving into the smuggling out of Australia. So it'd be interesting to see where they pop up. But I mean, they such a high profile animal, own pellies. That there'd be so much red tape involved to, if you have them, I don't know, I don't know I don't even think they're outside of Australia. I do not know of any.
There are 1 or 2 that I know of.
That are they in zoos or in private? Like, I mean, that.
I think I know one is in a private collection in the US.
Okay.
But I mean, what the hell, does it really matter?
No.
But I don't understand why your government or our government is that thick that they can't work out that an animal being exported from legal parents was never going to go back to the wild. So why can it not be traded with? And it's not difficult to prove where they come from. All you do is you have a shedding from the mother, a shedding from the father, a shedding from the baby, costs you $20, and you've got proof that that animal was bred in your facility.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go and microchip a bloody baby Stimsons and wonder why this thing needs a wheelbarrow to carry the microchip with. You can send the stuff out without a microchip. Just breed the things, prove that they're captive bred, and ship them. And if it's a color morph, ship the damn thing. It's not like they will ever go back to the wild. So if it's an albino or striped or whatever doesn't naturally occur, export the damn thing. It's really not a big deal. I mean, you specializing in bearded blue tongue skinks now. Why the hell can they not be exported? They're being smuggled out. I saw them in the US, exorbitant prices, and we know who smuggles them out. And it's not 1 or 2, it's lots of them. I was offered them, I had to buy 10 of them, unsexed, at $5,000 each.
That's crazy.
And I'm going, I can't spend that sort of money on a white or a black blue tongue skink.
When there's that many already, like, I mean, it makes sense if it's one or two, but if they're offering them in bucket loads, I mean, why would you? But I guess it's
But where they're getting them, they're smuggling them out. And the thing is, now you as soon as you start smuggling, now you've got to add in extra stuff. So now you're adding in a couple of shingle bags, and you're adding in a lace monitor and this and that to make it worthwhile, because you can't just smuggle the same thing. And that is where the evil comes in. If somebody's taking a pair for themselves, what the hell difference does it make? I mean, you guys drive over them every day in the road. So
I guess that's the other angle. I guess that's the other angle is you look at the death toll of reptiles on the roads.
Rob McMillan.
Yeah, Rob McMillan. Yeah, hello, Rob. But you look at the death toll on the roads, and it's the same thing in South Africa. Like it's okay to drive over a reptile. It's okay to shovel to kill it with a shovel or shoot it with a gun or whatever. Okay, it's illegal. Yeah, but who really gives a shit about what's legal and not?
Okay, imagine you go to court and you say, I saw the snake in my garden. I thought it was going to attack my children, so I shot it.
Yeah.
Who's going to say, no, but what you did was wrong and we're going to lock you up? They're not going to do that. They're going to say, yes, we understand. And it's the same in South Africa. I mean, in all the provinces, except for the one now, obviously, everything is protected. You're not allowed to catch it. You're not allowed to kill it. You can't keep it, whatever. But as soon as it's a venomous snake, you're allowed to kill it. There's nothing to stop you from killing it. The farmers kill them all the time. And they just say, it's a threat to my livestock, it's a threat to my family, I'm killing it. So
Colin,
now, the next time you see the guy and he's killed a common egg eater, which doesn't even have a damn tooth in its mouth. And he goes, I thought it was a night adder. And they go, you know what? We understand. We would have done the same. And that's it. They kill us all the time.
Colin does a bit of catch and release stuff. Has anybody ever, because I don't really concentrate on that type of stuff. Has anybody ever been actually prosecuted in Australia for killing a wild snake? Have you ever heard of?
No, not to my knowledge. No.
If somebody getting a fine or anything, I mean, it's all fair and well. You say that something's protected and you're not allowed to kill it, but do they really enforce? Is it really something that they enforce? If they see somebody, you'd wonder if they see somebody killing a snake, would they really take the time to stop and write a ticket? I mean, I just don't.
But they would prosecute you if you picked it up and you took it to go and release it somewhere else, and they found you along the way.
Yeah,
Same as what happens here.
I think guys have been fined in Victoria for taking photos, picking up animals from the road, taking photos of them next to the road, and they've been issued with fines for what do they call it? Interfering with wildlife. They got fines for taking photos of them. And you go, what?
Sound like child molesters.
Yeah, but you wonder what is the point behind that? And what's it going to take to what's it? But then on the other side, I speak. Sorry, Arno.
Well, if you think back, what is the reason for this? It's to conserve nature and make sure that these animals stay there in perpetuity for our kids and our grandkids and all of that. How the hell is moving a snake off the road and taking a photograph going to stop that animal from doing what it would normally be doing, considering there's a great big bloody road he's going to go back on the road and get killed at some stage?
Yeah, I know too. We all know the pitfalls of the legislation and the way that it's I don't know, it's so outdated. I was saying to somebody the other day that the Wildlife Act in Victoria came into power when I was born, 1975. And in all the other states, it gives you I mean, I'm 45 now. That was how long.
Yeah.
And then they did a revision in 2014 to add a few species on it. It's called the 2000 for the wildlife regulations is now the second part, but it hasn't really evolved in time. It hasn't evolved with the way that we keep reptiles now. Like there's still no commercial license. So in Victoria, you cannot be a reptile breeder and make a career out of it. Although there are people that I used to bend the rules to do that because I used to make enough reptiles and I used to do all the different types of things to make it work. But why is there still not in 2020 1975 till now, there's still no law that facilitates people to make a career out of reptile breeding legally. It's the same problem that they have in all the other states.
Can I give you some advice? Because I've walked this road, exactly the same one that you need to. Is you need to get a group together, and you need the spokesperson not to have a criminal record. So that cuts out most of your buddies. However, you need somebody.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
Fucking ouch.
No, it's unfortunately that's life. That's the way it works.
Yeah,
so
I know.
you need somebody who can go to, whether it's a local or provincial or whoever person, and say, listen, we want, use COVID-19 and say, listen, my business is stuffed. I'm buggered. I don't have an income. However, I breed albino blue tongues, and I want to export them to generate funds for myself so that I'm not a burden on the state, and I will have to pay taxes on that. So now the state will get money from that as well.
Yeah.
And I will prove that they captive bred by doing this.
Yeah.
I have the adults on permit. They are on license, whatever you guys use. They have been microchipped. I know who the parents are. They legally acquired. How about you help me to not become a burden on the state? And maybe one arsehole is going to go, let me think about this, because if I can bring money into Australia, I'm going to be a hero and people will vote for me. And then,
but it will boil down to it
on your side as well.
But it will boil down to that eventually. It will boil down to the point where somebody will be somebody that is a reptile keeper and a politician will end up in a position.
No,
they will end up a guy that but that is the way to do it though. That will be you need somebody that's open to that suggestion, because he has a kid that has blue tongues and that has this pile of reptiles that he is keeping, but he's got no real monitoring. And then somebody that is maybe not directly involved, but see the love and affection and see the benefit of it, that is in a position like that, to actually start talking about it. This country, there has been a lot of people that have tried that. And, I sometimes wonder, I haven't really looked into the legislation involved with it, but I think they just make it that hard that the majority of people just look at the paperwork and go, that's just too hard basket. Just forget about it. Sometimes it's just too hard. There would be a way to do it. It's just too hard. Yeah.
Exactly the same as what they did here. They made it so difficult that nobody was prepared to take them on. And if you write a letter to them and you say, well, this and this and this could work, they just turn around and they either don't answer you or they ignore you. Yeah. Where if you have a group of people, you have like 12 people who say, we want a meeting with you, and 12 people walk in there, and each one's got his little laptop under his arm and knows what he's talking about, doesn't lie to them, doesn't swear.
Has no criminal record. Yeah, we've already discussed that.
Yeah, that'll help. Although it didn't make any difference.
The room. You just can't go in.
But if you get 12 people walking in there and saying, listen, this is what we want to do. We are the whatever association, and we're representing the reptile keepers of this state or of the country, and this is what we need. Maybe then they'll start to think, hang on, well, there's more than just one or two people. These are voters. We need them to vote for us, so let's try it. It's possible. You need to give it a swing at it while you're still young enough to do it, because eventually you're going to get old and they're going to think, well, this person's senile. If you can say, listen, I've been doing this for 25 years. I know what I'm talking about, and this is where the future is. And here's the reasons why it's a good idea for the country. Because now we get taxes, we get paid. So we're bringing money into the country, number one. We pay taxes, number two. And number three, nobody's smuggling these animals out anymore. So there's no stress on them. They're not arriving there dead, and just the welfare side of that. And then the fact that there would be an interest for people to do this and earn a living, and not get money from the state for whatever they need.
But I wonder if they
carry that across to them, maybe you stand a chance.
But I wonder if they actually realize how much reptiles can bring in for the government. If you say, if they even get a fraction, so if they are selling, I mean, this is why, the smuggling industry is a totally different, it's a totally different ball game. But if they would legalize if they would just legalize blue tongues to go out, and even if they would say, look, we want 30% on a lizard, and they're selling those lizards for $3,000 a lizard overseas, that's $1,000 for having to do absolutely bugger all.
Yeah.
You know, for the permits, because they'll make sure that it's the same thing as importing products and things. You know, customs make sure that they tack on every type of charge. You know, I'm handling this I'm handling this piece of paper, that's $50. I'm picking up this pen, that's $50. You know, I'm switching on my computer, that's $15. They do that. This is how they'll tack up there, and then to get a good chunk out of the export, you know, call it an export tax, you know, but you're making money off, and us guys, the guys that are proficient at making reptiles, we export these animals, and it just puts a big fucking dent, sorry about the language, in that illegal export market. But whether or not the pricing stays up like that when it suddenly becomes legal, nobody knows. There's no reason for it to come down. You know, it's just...
But what's the worst that can happen? Suddenly it comes down. If you look at it, there are still people who are trading in bearded dragons. Now, at one stage, bearded dragons were being bred for snake food.
Yeah.
But nowadays, if you can go to any reptile expo, whether it's here, whether it's in the US, whether it's in Europe, and people are still selling bearded dragons. So there is still a market for them. Yeah. You won't be able to charge that much for them anymore. So what you would do is you'd take, for example, a batch of 40 baby bearded dragons, you DNA test one of them, and you test the parents, and you say that's the whole batch, and there they go. Yeah. They have the right at any stage to say, no, we insist on more trade of some sort, and more proof before trade can take place. But who cares? I mean, at least you'll get some of your stuff out.
Yeah.
And the money would come into the right people, the people who actually put in the effort.
And I know, if I had the opportunity to buy, if I could buy a panther chameleon here, and I could buy it legally, I would make a plan to come up with a vast sum of money to be able to do that. Even if now I'm talking about stuff coming into Australia, there is a lot of people that would pay some serious money to be able to buy legal, unquestionable animals, and that are willing to adhere to the strictest license conditions, and willing to set their lives up to make sure that these animals are correctly kept over here. You know, I think people do that. They do the same with stuff that goes out of Australia. There are guys that would prefer a legal animal versus a black market animal that doesn't, you know, especially the bigger guys that want to get in on that, but a lot of them go, I can't touch it. It's too hot for, you know.
Yeah, you can't.
Yep.
And another thing is that panther chameleon that's coming into Australia now, you've got to pay to get it there, and you're going to pay all the taxes and import duties and everything else. You're going to look after that animal, and you've got to sell it now. Now, you're not competing with all the illegal rubbish, because you can prove where it comes from. So people would rather buy from you. You now sell that animal to whoever, and that money that comes in, you pay taxes on it. It's personal income tax. So they tax it from the day it arrives till the day the 17th generation gets sold. They're still making money all the time. Yeah. And isn't that what government is there for? To make money. Yeah. And it doesn't cost them anything. And what is the risk? A panther chameleon escaping in Australia. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I can guarantee they'd love to get some of that money back that they've been handing out around here, hey, Cole?
That's right.
All the $1,500 that people have been dishing out now, you know, like there's way, I don't know. We could
be the best time to do it. Use this as an opportunity. See it as an opportunity and say, you know what? Now governments are scratching to try and get money, and you can say, look, let us help you. We'll get you the money. Because you know, $1,500 is nothing when you start importing and exporting. It's
you know,
it's Mickey Mouse money.
And to tell you, like, I was talking to somebody.
Comments. I just don't agree with it. So.
Another thing, I was talking to somebody this week that from in South Australia, and you know, they've got such a good relationship with their government officials, with their wildlife officers there, that they have a meeting. I don't know what, I can't remember. It's like 4 or 5 times a year where they sit around, have coffees, they talk about the licensing system. What would people like to see change? What would they like to see added? How would they, and it's a open discussion. There are, give, there's give, there's take, from both sides. It's a two-way street. And they've got the best licensing system I think, from what I know, the best licensing system in Australia, where they've taken off like something like, how many species that they take off the licensing system beginning of the year? Something like 50 or 150 or something silly like that, where people can, if they kept in like ones and twos, they can keep these things like parentes and all these species that the other states can't. But it's just because the relationship is open and because people don't feel like they're being prosecuted every time they deal with them. It's
they
not
take they take the personalities out of it too.
Yeah.
More about the licensing,
Yeah,
that's what's happened in the past.
It's a bigger picture, It's a bigger picture.
So people are commenting saying illegitimate trade is more profitable for the governments, and then fines are more than fees, which I don't agree. Like at the moment, government spending like hundreds of thousands of dollars prosecuting these people to put them in jail or fine them 20 grand.
Yeah.
Where they could be making $1,000 an animal, and you might send 20 skinks out, or you know what I mean? Like it's not more profitable. No
people
way.
that say that don't realize how big the smuggling trade actually is.
Right.
I mean, you guys have
haven't been to America
one or two.
And seen it.
You have 1 or 2 busts a year. So, even at $20,000, you're making $40,000 a year from all the busts.
Yeah.
But now you've got to employ those people, and you've got all this undercover bullshit that's happening behind the scenes, and these guys sucking money from the government to be able to tap your phone and all this, which wouldn't be required. So sure. What they could do then is they could make the fines double what they are now, because you have a legal opportunity to export it. So yes, they can go crazy and say, listen, we're going to put you away for 5 years. And you go, but why? Shame, it was just a lizard. No, you had a legal opportunity. Yeah. Why the hell did you do that?
That's a very good point.
The other thing is, if you know that somebody else is smuggling out albino blue tongues, who's the guy that's going to squeal first? It's going to be you, because you are losing money because this guy is smuggling. So we're the best informants going to be the people in the trade, because if I know that I'm exporting legally and another guy's smuggling them out and making maybe even cheaper and undercutting me, I'm going to find out whatever I can. I'm going to give that information in. So at the end of the day, who wins? To me, I really don't give a damn about people. I care about the animals.
Yeah.
And in that way, those animals will go out legally. They'll go out on, in a hold which has been heated, and they're arriving there and they're immediately getting food and water, and they don't get lost along the way, and they're treated like royalty. I mean, I do some imports as well, so I know what it's got to look like. The IATA standards are so high that, you're only allowed so many animals per square meter, and all. That's already in place. Australia just has to jump on the bandwagon and say, hey, here we are. We're also taking money now.
Let me give you an idea about just how much money they waste on enforcement. Okay, now, and this comes from first-hand experience, so it's not from hearing. So it's not from hearing this. I might get triggered now because this stuff hurts,
No, it's true.
In 2015, when I got raided and my animals seized and stuff like that, a lot of people watching the show probably doesn't know that, But I used to be one of the more questionable figures in the industry. I've changed my life around now, and I'm trying to live a better life. But they raided my facility. They seized 650 animals, and they kept those. They took all of the enclosures that they were kept in. They seized the racks. They kept they because they didn't have a way to house the animals. So they took as much as they could to make their life easier. So they took it to their facility close to the Melbourne airport. They rigged up their whole seizure room was full of animals. I mean, it was like, you can imagine 650. Like there was at least 400 bearded dragons there. They seized all the the big tubs and lizard racks some of the stuff they left. When we eventually went to court, when I had to go and stand up in front of a magistrate because I couldn't afford a solicitor or anything. I stood up in front of the court, and with the documents that they handed to the magistrate on the day, in the 6 weeks that they had the animals in their care, and remember, they didn't have to euthanize. They were seeking permission from the court to euthanize those animals. So there were other options, because in the past, and this is because look, that's why people pay for solicitors and barristers, because they know how to address the court, and they know what angle to take with these guys. But in all of the documentation that I found, in every situation where animals were seized, where they were exotic, so if a guy in Victoria, they seized a guy's diamond pythons, and he had a boa had a couple of boas there, and in the past, prior to 2015, those animals, the exotic animals were euthanized, and the indigenous animals were put into quarantine for a short period of time, and they were surrendered into the industry, so they had people that offloaded them to pet shops or whatever. So nothing was euthanized. This particular time, where it made all the sense to quarantine the animals, even the zoos in Australia would, and this is from the study that I did about how the zoos do it. Lizards go into quarantine for 30 days because they don't carry anything that, snakes is a different story. So I had approached the magistrate, and I said to him, look, so why does everything have to be euthanized? Because, so the magistrate agreed and said, look, we have to come back on a different date or whatever, long story. But in that period where we were trying to fight about what has to happen with animals, the government spent $58,000 in 6 weeks. That's not the prosecution. That's not the. On the day of the raid, there was 20 government officials. There were 20 wildlife officers there, and at least 6 policemen. And their salaries were being paid for that day. And whatever that I was being investigated for at least 3 months before they did the raid, where they was on stakeouts and stuff.
So you're looking at 100 grand easy
just for that. And then for the barristers, their barrister would have cost $4,000 for the day to come out. And you go, so okay, for bearded dragons, okay, I had a couple of chameleons and a couple of crested geckos. I shouldn't have had those. But to take those and euthanize those and put the other animals into quarantine that they already did, because by the time we went to court, it was about 45 to 60 days after that. So those animals, a zoo would have cleared those animals for disease by that time. So why couldn't those animals be released to the general public in Australia or handed out, So the magistrate just said, look, well, they can't, there's a quarantine, there's a because they spin the bullshit angle of, but there's a biosecurity risk, and these animals carry all these mutations, and we don't know what to do with them. They gave me the option initially to hand when they didn't, because my wife, they were smart. In Victoria, I've never gone into detail like this, but I thought, well, we're talking about the government and how the inability to see reason. They were smart enough my animals were kept at my house under license for my wife. So in an interview with them, I stated that I care for the animals and I look after the animals, and they used that angle to cancel the license, because in Victoria, if you have a reptile, then you have to be the license holder for that reptile. But we're only allowed to have one license per house. So if you in a house if your wife, so originally we got the license on my wife's name. If she's not the primary caregiver, then she can't have the license. So they twisted that, and there's a lot of people here that do keep reptiles under their wife or their partner's or their spouse's name, whatever, So they use that to cancel the license. And then when they cancel the license, they said to me, okay, you've got 600 animals here. You have 6 weeks ago, it was 4 weeks. It was July by end of August. So it was the end of July. By the end of August, when you have to renew your license that you are not going to get approval for, you have to move on all 600 animals, or you can give them to us and we'll euthanize them for you, because we can't release, because we don't know what the animals are. We don't know what they look like. So we went to court. The magistrate ruled. But they cut off their own nose, because they wanted to hold on to the $50,000 worth of equipment that they seized from me as well. And the magistrate ruled on that, not on that occasion, but further on. The equipment also has to be destroyed. So nobody won. They got a measly sentence for me that I won't go into details with. But was it worth the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they spent to prosecute somebody that didn't have a license to keep bearded? Because it was for keeping reptiles without a license, you know?
For them, it's very easy. All they do is they spin it. Well, we made an example of this, and now it won't happen again. And how the hell do you fight against that? You can't, because they made an example of you. Bullshit. Nobody really cares. All they go is, we must just be cleverer than that guy. So it really doesn't. It makes no sense for the animals at the end of the day.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons that they handed to the magistrate, was that it sets a precedent for them to show people what happens to somebody that doesn't have a reptile license and that keeps carpet pythons and fucking bearded dragons illegally. So two of the most prolific, abundant species in our hobby in Australia and the rest of the world. How does that make sense? You are a fucking dirty scumbag for keeping reptiles without... Man, are you for real?
We have a similar problem here. We've got people coming from the Far East to come and take out small little succulents, which we have growing naturally here. And they catch these guys with like 8,000 of these little succulents, some of them extremely rare. Nobody can do anything with them afterwards, so they give them all to one of the tropical gardens and they keep them. But these guys are getting 4 years, 8 years, which we all go, yes, great. But it hasn't stopped it. I mean, every 4 months, one of them will get caught and they will have thousands of these plants. So he doesn't really make an example of them. However, if you could breed these plants and you could export all those plants, which you can't do now, and put them on open market and say, look, this is what they're worth, then you've got to say, well, yes, okay, can I, can't I? You know what? It's not worth the trouble of buying a plane ticket, going there, spending time in hotels, hiring cars, dodging police, just to get a plant which I can buy online and have delivered to my door.
Didn't you tell me about
it?
Sorry, I know. I forgot. I just wanted to be. You can keep going, but I just wanted to, you told me that story about the chameleons in the Congo, or something about the doors from Madagascar. Were you the one that told me about that?
Yeah.
We can talk
what
about.
Happened was Tanzania closed for the export of wild animals. The reason being, they had some giraffe and I think zebra that was supposed to go to China.
Yeah.
And there was a big problem. The animal rights got involved. There was a big thing about not actually sending these animals out to China.
Yeah.
So they closed the doors until they could find out exactly what was going on. And then somebody went and found a loophole and I think bounced it via another country or something like that. Anyway, they shipped these animals and the minister lost the plot completely. And he said, that's it. No exports whatsoever. Now, Tanzania was relying on a lot of exports of animals that are bred there or even captured there. I mean, you can go out and go shoot the zebra, but you can't export it, which is kind of stupid. But anyway, and there was a guy there who had set up a chameleon facility.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the best in the world. And this guy had Madagascan chameleons, because Madagascar and Tanzania are almost on the same a lateral line. So they have similar weather and everything. And this guy could keep them outside and he could breed chameleons. He was breeding them by the thousands. And when they said no wild animals, they included all the exotics. So this guy has got, you know how long a chameleon lives, 2 or 3 years at the most.
Yeah.
So in the last 5 years, he probably has lost all his original seed stock. And he's got to pay every day to put in insects and have people clean cages for something he doesn't know whether he'll ever be able to sell. So, you know, sometimes they don't think of the implications of it. I had a friend who was trying to export some zebra to the Middle East. And there was a big problem about this because they had to draw blood to make sure it was the specific rare species and everything. And when he applied to export it, they said, no, you can't export them. So he said, but the things are in bomas already. What's the problem? So they said, no, we'll give you a license to hunt them, but we can't give you a license to export them. So I'm thinking, so instead of them being allowed to go breed in another country and show people what our wildlife looks like, and maybe they'll come and visit, we've now got to shoot them and turn them into dog meat because you can't eat a damn zebra. And you've got a lovely skin, which I can make out of a cow skin and paintbrush.
You can turn them into biltong though. So I mean,
yeah, it's not very nice though.
But there's a way you can. But I know what you mean. But it's just.
But you guys have the same problem with the kangaroos and the camels and all that stuff as well. It's a similar problem.
I've seen that. Yeah. I think every country's got their own issues. I think every country's got their own, situation where people, and then of course the as loud as we are, you've also got the left wing that is as loud as we are about not keeping them in captivity and all of their reasons. And I know there's an issue now. I saw it a while back that they've now using I think they're dealing with that in America now, where they want to use the Lacey Act now again with a back door with this COVID to stop animal movements across borders. Really, what? Yeah. Why is it such? Why do you think it's such a important thing for the government to control? Why is the American government
so? Not government.
Or is it just people?
In America, you've got people there who pay for certain politicians to be in certain positions. They donate towards his campaign and all this bullshit, and he'll do whatever they want to. Yeah. So there are companies there or organizations that will pay for this specifically because it serves them.
Yeah.
If you are the only person that's allowed to rehome cats and dogs, you can charge what you like. So if you've got nobody producing cats and dogs, and you're the only person that's taking in strays and reselling them, because that's what they're doing, it's a rehoming fee, it's bullshit, they're selling them, then at least you're getting money in and you don't have to work for it, because the dog's been given to you and you're just sterilizing it and selling it. So it's much easier than breeding it. But there are people there who have these sort of agendas. They don't want anyone to have exotics. So now with the COVID thing, they say, yes, but it's got to do with the wet markets and people selling live animals to the public and them being slaughtered on the streets and all this. That's bullshit, because there are laws that provide for it, that you cannot use the street as an abattoir. I mean, there's all these stupid things that people don't think about. Like now using the COVID-19 Act and saying you can't move live animals across borders, that's it. They've managed to stop the reptile trade. It's that simple.
Yeah, there's always a way,
Yeah. The thing is, you've got to always wonder, why do people do this? What is the aim of the organization behind this? Yeah. And when you find out the real truth, then it becomes, wow, okay, so these people don't want us to have any other pets besides cats and dogs. Do they maybe have shares in a company that makes dog food or cat food or kennels or other stuff like that? There's always another angle which people are not aware of, and we'll probably never find out. I mean, the whole animal rights thing is a scam from beginning to end.
Yeah. But hopefully the truth comes out eventually. That's all we can say. And hopefully, I'm holding my breath. Apparently, they're doing a review of our licensing down in Victoria. I think next year or the year 2022, I think, or 2024. No, it's 2020.
Don't wait for them. Do it now. Go to them and initiate it from your side, because at the moment they've got nothing to do. All they're doing is COVID, and you can use that and go, well, because of COVID, we don't have an income. Can we do this?
I haven't even heard of anybody actually having a visit in recent years either. In this time now, I don't think they're leaving their offices at the moment. Too scared.
Well, the easy way to get around that is by print one of those quarantine signs and put it outside your
door.
Dwelling. When you arrive there, you say, listen, my kid is coughing. We're under quarantine. You can't come in. And are they going to come in?
There's a tip for somebody out there, Yeah. But there was a patch now. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time festering on we get the coronavirus in our ears often enough, But I have seen it. It is a little bit crazy in South Africa at the moment under the.
No, it's beyond crazy. It's stupid. We're not allowed to have any tobacco products or alcohol, because with a tobacco product, when you roll a cigarette, you spit on it and then you share it, and that's how you get the disease. I mean, bullshit. Most of us buy the packets sealed in a shop. We're not allowed to have alcohol because we'll misbehave when we've had alcohol.
Oh,
so
yeah,
everyone's making their own pineapple beer and everything. And people here have died from it because they didn't extract the methanol, or they've added stuff to it. It's bullshit. It's not. There's a power trip like you cannot believe. And when you tell other people, you actually feel embarrassed about your own country to think, but somebody, well, not somebody, more than 50% of people voted for this idiot, and this is the way they're leading the country. I mean, it's scary how stupid these people are. And you think, how did they get into that position? They're 72 years old. They can barely read or write. They don't even know the difference between a ventilator and a vibrator.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's a joke. And the thing is, you don't want your country to be a joke. You want to be proud of your country, but we can't. There's no way. We can't be proud of our country or the leaders now. They're useless.
So tell me, let's get back on talking snakes. So we've talked about the government. We talked about the people are watching this show to talk about reptiles. I know that you're working with. You mentioned the Angolan pythons earlier, and I did see I was going through your photos there to find photos for your little collage that I made earlier. But I did see that you're involved with Angolan pythons, and I saw you bred a striped. Is it a fully striped one?
It's not genetic. It's one of those genes you just line breed it, and you'll end up with a striped one. Because I've got some with stripes, some with half stripes, some with spots, that almost form a stripe. So no, unfortunately, it's not genetic.
But it's still yours, though.
Yeah, it's mine.
That's all that matters. It's not genetic. I always say that as well. I like striped. There's something about a striped snake to me that is totally. I mean, albinos are nice. Funny patterned ones are nice. But something about a stripe is it must just be the symmetry. A proper stripe it feels man-made. There's something about a striped snake that you don't just find them in the bush. It almost looks artificial.
Snakes. Grass snakes. We have plenty. So
but that's not a snake.
But
that's not a snake. Yeah.
For example, I don't like something which is just brown and patternless because we catch them on a daily basis. It's either snouted cobras or it's brown house snakes. So, by the time you've got this, super zebra or something which is patternless, I look at it and I go, I can catch that in my garden, dude. I'm not going to pay you for it. Each person's got different things they like.
Yeah, they've got the house snakes remind me of the Antaresia, the children's pythons group here.
Very similar.
And I can't help to think that they fill the same sort of niche in the environment in Australia as what they do in South Africa. But they're the same. I look at them and I just can't. I get excited about some of the new mutations that are out there. But when I arrived here, I looked at the Antaresias and I just went, why do you keep? Who wants to keep that? It's like you say, you something that's patternless and that's dull colored. You go, at least they're showing some potential nowadays. So.
Yeah, but the Stimsons are a little bit different to a house snake. I mean, they've got a nice pattern. Some of the large blotch have got nice patterns as well. So, sure, you can pick amongst them. But I mean, I still keep house snakes. It was one of the first snakes I had. So, it's now 40 years later. I'm still keeping the damn thing. So, there are some snakes that you keep, but you don't get extremely excited about. But you still like keeping them. And
So what gets you really excited these days? You've been in that for that long. What really tickles you? What do you keep yourself busy with these days that you find the most enjoyment out of?
All right, the one that gave me the most enjoyment died. That was an albino rhombic egg eater. The reason being it was my first snake, and I always wanted to see what an albino looked like. Yeah. And somebody caught this animal, and it came from a friend. And the guy arrived. He said to me, "Oh, you'll bring it round tomorrow." So I said, "No. I need to see it tonight." So the guy arrived there, and I had 5,000 Rand in one pocket, 3,000 in the other pocket, and I worked out I'm going to offer him 3, and then offer him 5, and then offer him 8.
What? But how many is that? That's like 5,000, like $500. Yeah, it's about $100. Yeah.
No, it's a bit.
thou-
At that time, it was more than my monthly salary.
Oh, okay. It was a
Okay,
while back.
so- Yeah, this was a while ago. So the guy arrives here and he says, no, he wants a snow corn snake and a Chilean rose tarantula, of which I
That's
had
nothing.
like 30 lying there. Here you go. Bye-bye. And the guy, that's all it was worth to the person that caught it. So,
It shows
you know,
you.
when you look at something, what is it worth to the person that found it? It's worth nothing to him. He was pushing his luck. I could have said to him, no, I can only give you a snow corn. He would have taken it. And I had that animal and it bred, and I couldn't raise a single baby. They ate and they died, and so that was gone. I've got another project which I wish I'd found the other one. They were this year. I managed to hatch a albino snouted cobra.
Oh.
And 2 weeks after that, somebody found another one. Okay, not as pretty, but it was also an albino. It had red eyes, way up in Limpopo province. And there were so many questions being asked. He just went and released it. And I'm thinking, what are the chances he would have had a mate for mine? Then I could have produced it straight away. So, yeah, I've got one. Only 2 of the eggs hatched. So I've got a male and a female. One is albino, one is a het.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens with them. So there's a couple of things. And then obviously boa constrictors and red ticks. Those are the 2 things that I really like at the moment.
You do a bit of you do a bit of import though as well, though. I mean, you've got okay.
I've managed to import quite a few red ticks. Most of the red ticks in South Africa actually originally came through me. So we have some really nice ones. I prefer the super dwarfs because they don't grow big, the size of a carpet python. Yeah. Just a bit fatter, and they're very nice. Boas. There's a lot of mutations there, and there's a lot of very nice combinations. I mean, if you pick up a jet black snake that shines, that iridescence like a Boolean's python, it's nice stuff. Yeah. And unfortunately, now it's become too expensive. You can't import the stuff anymore. It's just our currency is worth nothing. We're going down the tubes, and to import something now is just impossible. Really, but it makes it worthwhile for export again.
But you are in a position though where you could do trades though. I mean that's the good thing about is there anything worthwhile? I mean, is there anything? I mean, I know Bjorn hatched those. I mean, what's the story about? I'd have to have him on the show once about those albino gaboon adders that he had.
I can tell you the story as well though.
But I mean, is there surely there's guys over in the US that would be interested in trading for stuff from South Africa? Is that an option or not really?
It is an option. The problem is that red ticks are not allowed to be imported into the US because they are dangerous animals or some rubbish there. Yep. So red ticks and Burmese are not allowed to be imported there. So now what we look at with the red ticks is generally the European market, and funny enough, the Asian market as well. There's a lot of people in places like Korea, Indonesia, Malaysia. They want the funny morphs that they haven't got, and South Africa can supply cheaper than what other countries can because whatever dollars come in, it's worth more than to somebody else. And where when you look at raising an animal, for example, what do you guys pay for a rat? Adult rat.
Lots. Colin, how much do you pay for a rat? Adult rat. $15.
I couldn't even tell you. Probably I'll tell you. I'll look up some prices.
$10-12 around there probably for a rat. It's stupid money. I know that the South African.
By comparison, here for 10 or 12 rand, which was less than $1, we can buy an adult rat. So it's a lot easier and cheaper for us to raise those animals, breed them, and export them. So we can export them cheaper than anyone else because our input costs is a lot less than anybody else's. So yes, there is a market for them, and we are looking at exploring. I mean, we're shipping captive bred ball pythons from South Africa to the US 2-3 times a year.
Gee.
Because we can supply animals which they can get there, but we can supply them cheaper. Not because of poorer quality. Yeah. It's just it costs us that much less to breed them.
Yeah.
So yes, there are possibilities. And something that I think Australia should look at is, you guys, are you allowed to crossbreed snakes? Because I see you doing it with the carpet pythons and Bradleys.
But that was I don't know. The crossbreeding. I mean, not interspecies stuff though. I mean, the carpets are so mixed at the moment. They don't really care
But,
about that.
okay, just quickly, help me right. How many species of carpet are there actually?
Well, it depends on who you ask, and depends on what type of taxonomy revision you believe in. But the carpets up to
Because I don't believe that there's only 2 or 3. I mean, there's got to be a hell of a lot more, and there's always been a lot more. So, you get somebody who mixes them up and goes and lumps them together, and then you breed them, and then afterwards, if you're not allowed to crossbreed, they go, oh, but you crossbred these things. And you go, yes, I did, but then they weren't cousins, they were brother and sister. So it becomes a bit of a problem. But can you, for example, cross a carpet python with a chondropython? What's it now, Morelia viridis?
No, you're not allowed to do that. That's interspecies. So even the.
So why can't you do it?
So you'll get in. You're not allowed to do it. It's part of the licensing. The licensing system says what the Wildlife Act says. You're not allowed to cross species, unrelated species.
So that would be perfect for export then, because when they see those, they know they're captive bred, so they don't have to think they were stolen from the wild. And those are the ones that should be going out first.
Yeah, but they would have to be able to identify this stuff. I've had issues where people have gone through and couldn't identify a Morelia bredli from a normal carpet, a normal coastal. And they visually so different that, I mean, how can you not, especially if you're a wildlife officer, how can you not identify the stuff that you're supposed to enforce the law with? But
we have the same problem.
To give you an idea, though, in Victoria up to 2014, all the carpets were lumped under one. So you can keep a carpet python, and in our record book, that every animal gets assigned a code, so like a 4-digit code. I think they were 2464 or something like that. So the carpet pythons were lumped, all of them. Morelia bredli. No, I think. Yeah, Morelia bredli. The bredels were the Centralian carpet python was lumped in there. The inland carpet python, coastal, jungles, they were all lumped into one species code as carpet python. Then in 2014, so everybody up to 2014 kept carpet pythons under one species code, no matter what the subspecies was. Okay. Then they decided to change it into all the different. So inland carpets got their own code. Coastal's got their own code. Jungle's got their own code. Diamonds got their own code. So people, when they had to then sell their animals, just had to decide which one they looked like the most. How is that? So from one
There's 4 species of carpet python in Australia.
So you go, and that depends on state, which the interpretation of the state legislation where those animals occur. So it's not just a straight.
Yeah, well, there's 4 species on A-Rod.
Yeah.
And then, but in New South Wales, you have a code for diamond pythons, a code for coastals.
And then you get a code. You've got a code for mixes as well. So mixed carpets.
That's correct.
So it's a system that's not really working, if you know what I mean.
But you guys should offer to actually get in there and help them. And at some stage, you need to have either a statewide or countrywide organization where you've got people who have a bit of clout to get together and go, this is what we're going to do. It doesn't help that you have a lot of people that are just into taxonomy and they don't know anything about husbandry, or people are just into reptile breeding, but they don't know enough about taxonomy. You need somebody who can marry that, or enough people together that when you go to a meeting, and they say, well, there's only this one species of carpet python, and you go, no, bullshit, we've managed to prove this. Oh, okay, cool. Now we've got an idea of why it happens. So if you can get that together, you might stand a chance of actually furthering the hobby past where it is now, because it's stagnating. Your hobby is not going to go much further than what it is now.
No.
And you need to make it go further. And you need people to appreciate what the natural wildlife that you have.
The thing is also we're living in a time where it's changing to a lot of this type of gatherings online. See, this live stream stuff. This is slowly replacing the media and the mainstream media as we know it. This could be a platform that, reptile communities could be put into contact on platforms like this, where stuff like this can be discussed. Yeah. And draw enough crowds to really make it uncomfortable. You see, the thing is, you need to have numbers to make
Yeah.
You need to make them uncomfortable by the amount of people that are putting the pressure on them. So you need a platform where there's 20,000 people actively involved in, so that they can see how they get dismembered on these things, and they know that they know that there's elections on the way. So this community of reptile keepers are all gathering in the same place, and they can see what the uproar is. You know, like, but to get reptile people to work together, oh my God, please, you know.
It's the same around the world. Don't think it's only Australia. But what you should do is try and invite the bird people as well. And I don't know if they're actually fish people. I know you're allowed to import fish there. Yeah. Maybe small mammals, if they're guys that are breeding, I don't know, sugar gliders or whatever you've got there, gliders or stuff that they want to export. It would make far more sense, because whatever you mention in Australia, I can go and get. I mean, even in South Africa, we've got gang parrots. So what? We've also got them. We've got red-tailed black cockatoos. Yeah, sure. I know someone who's got 2 pairs. Hyacinth macaws, how many do you want? So it's not
African greys, down by the dozen.
Yeah. So it's not that unusual for those animals to have left the country in any case. So if you can get people together and you can start saying, well, we're going to start producing, okay, unfortunately, for example, your sulfur-crested cockatoos, there's no market for them. South Africa breeds the hell out of them, and we supply most of the world with them. Anyone who wants, they don't go and say, well, let's go smuggle one out of Australia. They go, let's find some idiot in South Africa, because they're breeding them like flies. Once again, we've got lower costs. The wire costs us the same, but I mean the laborers cost us less, the sunflower seed costs us less, the vegetables cost us less. So we can produce all those parrots legally for far less. They've all got rings on them, and it's not a problem to export them. To export those things out of South Africa is simple. You just go and apply for the permit. You say, these are the ring numbers. They look at them, they go, well, then they have to be captive bred. You can't go catch cockatoos in South Africa, and off we go. And those things are we ship to almost every country in the world except America. America doesn't allow the import of parrots from Africa because it's cruel.
I can't believe that. Can you believe that, Colin? An adult rat for $1.20.
Yeah.
I just have to laugh. Huh?
I know a couple of the big reptile facilities in America. A couple of the big businesses buy all their wild type ball pythons from South Africa for like $7, $5 a piece for Petco and all that sort of stuff. You know, they just keep them for the quarantine period, whatever it is, feed them, and then.
No, they don't have quarantine in the US. It comes in and they can sell it the next day.
They can sell it next day. Okay.
Yeah.
You just see racks of them, and they're for Petco, and they come straight from South Africa.
Yeah, crazy, huh? Yeah, no, it's God, we could this but it needs a structured movement to take it on. You know, one person's not going to make a difference, and talking's not going to make a difference either. It needs to be actioned. You know, like that. Why did you want a tortoise? Somebody has
to start it.
Oh, you want a tortoise, Colin? Yeah, I want a backyard.
I'm walking around my backyard. Sulcata, whatever.
No,
just give me one.
Sulcata grows too big and they dig under everything. Leopard tortoises are nice. They grow to a fair size as well. And I mean, those we breed here by the bucket load.
But you can see you're not a refined Colin. There's better. There's like parrot beak tortoises and tent tortoises and angulate tortoises. There's all these little tortoises in South Africa that are just fantastic. I miss all of that stuff. You know, that's my biggest thing I gave up there. The things I miss the most are the leopard tortoises that came through the back door, down the stairs, into the house, into the kitchen, looking for food. You know, and they're sitting there, and and it's always the same ones. There's only some of them that did that. But you had the big old girls and they'd go up the stairs. You know, you look at a tortoise, you go, there's no way that thing's going to climb the stairs. And you see this tortoise just one step at a time, and they'd climb it, and they'd come. And
when I go to the US and Florida, like the Cannon's place, or whatever, that's the thing I like checking out the most is all the tortoises and Aldabras, and I just love it. So.
And they come and they know they associate you with food. I don't think it's because there's an emotional bond. I think it's just that you've got something that I want to eat. What have you got? You know, what have you got? You know, you've got. I saw last time I saw you was in 2000. I think I saw you 2005 or something. and you had
That's
you just hatched. You always hatch baby. If you go and visit Arno, there's always a chance of seeing a tub full of baby hatchling leopard tortoises. And you at that stage, you had one of those orange frogs, those frogs that's highly as they poisonous. Those orange and black frogs.
poison dart frogs.
No. This was one of those. It was probably about.
Oh, yeah, Heidi still got one. It's called a red-banded rubber frog.
And you don't lick them because you die.
No, you don't die, but you if an adult human eats two of the skins of those, there's enough of a cardiotoxin to kill you.
Oh, nice.
So if you mix it up and you put it in food and you go distribute it to the homeless, don't go there.
You can get yourself into trouble on there, if you say that stuff out loud,
Yeah, I'm just joking. But yeah, we do have them here. They're not that toxic. I mean, it doesn't get absorbed through your skin enough to do any damage, but it does give you one hell of a headache.
I'll tell you.
If you have to eat them, then they would kill you.
I have another story of a fond memory of visiting you the last time. Arno had this bloody pig. You don't have that pig anymore. He had this bloody pot-bellied pig, but the thing was, I don't think it wasn't dwarf. It was like a normal-sized pig, but it was the biggest, fattest pig that I've seen. It was low profile, with the gut dragging on the floor. And Arno used to always as soon as you go in the door, he says, just watch out. He has an habit of biting your ankle. He'll take your Achilles, your Achilles tendon right off. And I was petrified of it. We were playing with Cape cobras and king cobras and stuff like that, and forest cobras that day. But that pig, I was terrorized of that pig. I literally sat down and I was like, when you just keep you've got an eye on that sucker the whole time. No matter what, there could be a highly venomous snake coming from this side, but that pig, don't come near me. As soon as it moved on the couch,
But talking about Aldabra tortoises, in Tanzania, they have wild Aldabras walking around there, which were brought over from the Seychelles and were released there. And I know there are people that go out and they know specifically where to look, and they go there certain times of the year and they pick up all these baby Aldabras, and you can get, I don't know, how many do you want? 50, 100? And
it's ridiculous.
The problem is the CITES Appendix 1, you can't get them out of Tanzania. So now you've got to, because you can't prove they're captive bred. I mean, they had to have been captive bred if they come from there, because where else would you get them? You can't go. But they have feral populations of Aldabras. I mean, what's wrong with that?
But I've heard stories of people in Australia, of the Greek immigrants that came here, brought their testudo, testudo humani, the Greek tortoises. They brought them on the boat, on the ships with them.
Testudo gracia.
Yeah, they used to bring them on the ships with them. There's people. I spoke to somebody the other day that said that he was visiting this old lady, and she just, in her garden there was a little Greek tortoise that's been here for 50 years. And nobody knows they had them in their luggage coming into the ships. And there's these people that live here that don't speak English. They're from Greece originally. They don't really care. They don't know. They're low profile. They've got their one tortoise, family tortoise. And they just living in the wild, living in the garden in Australia. Nobody knows the better. It's crazy. This stuff happens still.
You know about the Aldabra that washed up on the shores of South Africa?
No. When was that?
Yeah. What happened was there were guys that were walking in the northern KZN, and they found this huge tortoise on the beach. So it ended up here at Transvaal Snake Park. And that Aldabra, nobody knows where it came from. And people said, yeah, but it was smuggled in, because it was quite a big animal. And then about a year or 2 years ago, they found an Aldabra. I don't know if it was in Tanzania or somewhere. And they pulled this thing out of the sea, and it had barnacles on it, which showed, and they looked at the growth of it from when it attaches to the carapace. Yeah. And they worked out that this animal had been in the sea for something like 4.5 months, just drifting,
on the
trying to drink seawater, nothing to eat, and it arrived there and it was fine. Nothing wrong with it. So I think that is how they originally moved. So now if you go to the northern part of Australia and say, hey, this thing washed up on the beach, look, here's an Aldabra.
There's a couple of species that have popped up in recent times that you go, oh, did it swim across? You know, like the green tree. Let me not get triggered. You know, like
don't even start on that
stuff like the green tree monitors that suddenly occur in Australia, and you go, really? Okay, that's interesting. But let's not move. Let's not go.
They used to be very expensive, and then they were bred in large numbers, and then people lost interest, and now they're not as common as what they were like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy how these things dip, and then, you know, one minute you've got a lot of them, and within a couple of years, nobody's keeping or breeding them.
Yeah. We had a few people say, somebody said, Arno for Premier, so you've been, you definitely.
Someone for president. Someone said Arno for president.
You could go. The voters would like you. I think. You're also involved. In a lot of snake bites. You're very active in consultation with doctors and stuff. I know you get very pissed off with doctors that don't follow guidelines and stuff. But I've seen I saw there's some photos of you doing. Is it first aid courses for snake bites? You do that as well?
Yeah, I do the first aid courses, plus I do lecturing for the doctors at one of the medical universities. I also lecture for the nurses at one of the nursing colleges. So it's just one of those things that for many years nobody really cared about. And the reason for that is we don't see that many deaths in South Africa. Same as Australia, you see very few deaths. No. So it's not an important thing. When the doctor sits there and he's got, I don't know how long yours are in classes, but here for 7 years, and he thinks, what are the chances that I'm ever going to come across a snake bite? Probably nothing. So let me take this time and rather go and study up on opioid overdoses or something. And because of that, we have a very few doctors that are actually specializing or even remember what they should have learned at the time that they were at university.
Yeah.
So after 10 or 15 years, this bite comes in and they try to remember, and they can't really, and they look at it and they treat it like it's a trauma. So if it's swelling, okay, it must mean that there's a problem. We need to do a fasciotomy. Now, the swelling is caused from a different thing. Oh, the person's bleeding. Let's give him blood. No, you can't do that, because as soon as you add blood, it thickens as well. You're going to have more blood clots. Chances are the person's going to die, because you're now just causing more problem because the venom is still circulating. So you've got all these problems, because I can appreciate that. I mean, I know nothing about a car. If I take a car to a mechanic and he says, oh, but this and this is gone, I go, yeah, sure. But the doctors cannot specialize in everything. They have to pick what they're good at. And if they're good at trauma, they're probably not going to be that good at snake bite. But unfortunately, they're going to work in the trauma department.
Yeah.
So some of these doctors remember me or have heard of me, and they contact me and they say, give me advice. I can only give them advice. If they take it or don't take it, that's up to them. I can't tell them this is what you have to do. So I give them what our protocols are and say, look, this is what we would do, but it's your choice. Because if that patient dies and they go, but why did you give him, I don't know, this painkiller and that caused his death, they're going to say, oh, because this idiot told me. No, it doesn't work like that. So I just give them advice, and what they do with it is their problem. But so far, touch wood, I've dealt with or assisted with probably more than 300 bites, and I haven't lost a single limb, digit, or life. So
that's awesome.
It's not too bad. I reckon it's pretty good.
That's a good strike rate. Colin, what's the sort of protocols here for you guys that do go out on the snake calls? If you get bitten, what's your plan of attack down? Yeah, this is stuff I'm just asking because I don't know, so I'm learning stuff from you.
So you don't have to, but I prepared like a methodology of, like I'll apply first aid, and then I'll go to in my area, I listed off the hospitals that are in my area to go to, and then just identify the snake.
Would the doctors know? Do you think there'll be doctors on hand that would know how to deal with snake bites? Do you think that's a common thing for them to know how to do? In Australia?
Yeah, yes. But like for my peace of mind, I'll be telling them what I've been bitten by instead of having to do the test and stuff.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. I mean, you are fortunate though. I mean, what do you think a person?
How would the bite site and all that sort of stuff?
How would they treat a person that come in that doesn't know what snake bit them, and how would they do that in South Africa? Arno?
Okay, on our side, it becomes a lot more difficult. In Australia, you just do a skin scraping, or you can do a urine sample, and you can put it into thing, and you can determine which bite it was and which group of snakes it was from, and use that specific antivenom or whatever. In South Africa, it's hit and miss. You've got to hope like hell that the person wasn't inebriated or didn't see the snake, and then you've got to go according to what symptoms there are. But some of them do, unfortunately, cross over, and that becomes very risky.
So why? So why is it? Why can they do that so easily? What's the difference? Why can they do that in Australia so easily and not in South Africa? Is the venoms the venoms very closely?
You have a test kit in Australia. We don't have one here. Okay. So that's where the differences come in, and that's why you have far few deaths in Australia, because they know exactly what it was. They look at the symptoms and they go, well, give them the antivenom. Yeah. Here we've got a bit of a problem. We've got one or two species for which we don't have an antivenom, so that becomes an issue. And for example, you get bitten by a black spitting cobra. The antivenom doesn't work well, and it probably doesn't work at all, and we have no alternatives. So there are some that are very risky. Luckily, it's a snake which occurs in an area where there's a low human density, so very few people get bitten. There's been like one or two people, and they've been fairly dry bites. It does become a problem, and it's just over time that when you look at a bite, you can say, okay, this is what it is. And then when you ask the right questions, you can more or less work out what snake it was. Yeah. The difference between the first half an hour after a puff had a bite, tonight had a bite, or a stiletto bite, they basically look the same. So now you start looking, is it bleeding, is it not bleeding? So there are little things that you've got to look for, and then if it is bleeding, you go, okay, it was a puff had, antivenom will work, give them an antivenom. Then you've got the problem, obviously, of allergic reactions to antivenom, people going to anaphylactic shock and dying. So there is that risk as well. So you can't just say, well, I'm going to give antivenom, and if I make a mistake, so what? You make a mistake, the person dies, and you find out it wasn't a dangerous snake. Yeah. It's not going to be very good for the doctor. So I understand it, and I appreciate exactly what they're going through. So that is why I never run down a doctor. It's not worth my while. It doesn't make for good communication in the future. But unfortunately, there are some of them where you can give them the advice and they just ignore it. You know, you say to them, for example, this is a Cape Cobra bite. If the person stops breathing, put him on a ventilator, he's not going to die. And the person struggles to breathe and they don't ventilate him and he dies. And then I go, but I told you 2 hours ago, this is what's going to happen. So yeah, we have a few problems, but the other problem that we have is a lot of our doctors are trained in Cuba. Now, that's great that they get trained there and they come back, and, you know, we've got these trained doctors which cost us a lot less, or I don't know exactly what the deal is. The problem is that they don't know anything about treating South African snake bites. So we've got 80 or 100 or 200 or whatever come back every year who cannot treat snake bite. And nobody here says when they arrive back, okay, listen, we're going to spend the next 6 months doing stuff which is species specific. For example, if somebody in South Africa gets stung by stonefish, nobody here is going to know what to do. In Australia, the doctor's going to go, oh, okay, we do this, this, this. It depends on what area you're in, what expertise you get. So, yeah, it becomes a bit of a problem, but that's life. I mean, you try your best and you try to teach people, and if they listen, great. If they don't listen, there's nothing I can do.
And at least you can say you've got about 300, and you've been all right so far. So I reckon that's a great.
Yeah, on animals not so good. Yeah, on animals not so good. Quite a few of the animals. Sorry, it's just a corona playing up. On animals, the record's not so good because of the cost of the antivenom. Yeah. So, you know, somebody's dog gets bitten by a snouted cobra, and you say, look, you're going to need at least 2 to 3 vials of antivenom. It's 1,600 Rand a vial. The guy goes, damn, that's more than my monthly salary. I can rather just buy another dog. So I understand that there are certain cases where it's just financially not viable to go ahead and treat the animal.
I think it's the same here, though. I seldom see people's dogs survive here. I mean, how do you have to take it to a vet here, Colin, if it gets bitten? Yeah?
I'm just reading up on the types of antivenom we have now. I thought there was only 5 snake ones, but there's 7. So you got them like we're the only country in the world that has the test.
Yeah. So maybe it's because their venoms are very similar that you can.
Yeah, you got tiger snake antivenom, brown snake antivenom, taipan, black snake antivenom, death adder antivenom, now sea snake antivenom and a polyvalent, which you can go either way.
Okay, well that's all right.
And then also we have funnel web antivenom, redback spider antivenom, paralysis tick antivenom, box jellyfish antivenom, and stonefish antivenom.
So quite a concise list of antivenoms you've got there for all the deadly creatures.
When I'm looking to the side, I'm doing research.
Yeah, no.
I'm not just ignoring it.
No. But I mean, we would be up there with the amount of venomous snakes. How many venomous species have we got in South Africa? Highly venomous, like deadly.
Deadly, we've only got about 12 that we can consider would be a problem. So it's not that much. I mean, if you look at it, Australia's got far more, but they're broken up, like you said, they're into those 6 groups because the venoms are pretty similar. So even though it's made from red-bellied black snake, it covers all the others. Here, it's not that simple. Just because it covers Mozambique spitting cobra doesn't mean it's going to cover black-necked spitting cobra. So there are always these issues that you have to worry about. But the best thing is that I milk quite a lot of snakes, and I ship the venom to Australia because you guys are doing more research on venoms than any other country that I know of.
Yeah.
The UK are doing very well. The Liverpool School of Medicine, they've got a lot of research being done into venoms and antivenoms. But I mean, most of it originates from Dr. Brian Fry. And the funny thing is, I keep sending him the desiccated antivenom, and then he says, but there has to be an invoice. So I've invoiced you guys for $1 for every shipment so far. It's just one of those things. I'm not going to charge money for something which didn't cost me money, which they can do research on and hopefully save lives.
Yeah.
So what's the protocol? What's the protocol to get venoms into Australia? Is there?
It's just got to be desiccated, and the person who's getting it needs some specific permit license thing, and then
so desiccated means just it needs to be
freeze dried, is it?
Dehydrated almost.
Yeah. No, but this is freeze dried and then just packaged and sent, and it stays there because
that's the sparky term, like the tradesman term to what you're saying.
What's that word?
Freeze dried.
The Australian way. It's just desiccated is the educated term. Freeze dried is the
freeze dried is the common man term.
Isn't there like a shortened, abbreviated version? Because that's another Aussie thing. It has to be like fro dry. What? What's that?
Is there an emoji for it now?
I don't know. Must be an emoji for it. Yeah. So, that's interesting. See, so I can do these shows as well, and I can learn stuff because that's why I like to get people on that know different stuff than what I do. So that's interesting. So Brian, so you get these things to Brian Fry, and what does he? He just takes it into his lab, and does he make antivenom, or does he just study it?
Antivenom. It's for determining what the venoms the composition of the venoms, as well as what you can use besides antivenom. For example, there's a paper that's coming out now where there's a freely available drug that's available on the market that if you get this into the person quickly after all the viper bites, which is the whole Betis group, if you get it in quickly enough, it basically stops the blood from breaking down. And you can, the nice thing about this drug is you don't need to keep it cold, and there's a lot of advantages to it. The publication is due quite soon. And that is also where they've done tests using small adders that they got the venom from me. So it's all been lumped together, and there's various things. And it gives people an understanding of what the venom does to your body, or what it does and how you can counter it. There's always been this search for the universal antivenom, which would then be, no matter what snake bites you, we give you the antivenom and you survive. It's not going to be a reality. However, with some of these drugs, we can use them and they will help for some snake bites. For example, we use a drug here called neostigmine, which you use to reverse anesthesia. We can use that for snouted cobra bites, but we can't use it for Cape cobra bites because they work on different parts of the synapses. So we can't use them for mambas, we can't use them for Cape cobras, but we can use them for snouted cobra. Yeah. And it's a drug that's freely available. It's cheap as well, costs next to nothing. You can give the patient that if you don't have enough antivenom or if they're not responding to antivenom. So there's all these little tips and tricks that we're trying to find out, so that in future, because look, let's be honest, there's a worldwide problem. Antivenom is not available anywhere in the world at a decent price. And if we can add these other things in that have already been on the market for 30 or 40 years and cost a lot less, either as an addition to antivenom or instead of antivenom, if you're really stuck, that's interesting, and it's nice to know, and we can save lives that way.
It's almost like the drug that they were saying a bit for the coronavirus with this what's it, chloroquine? What's this stuff? The malaria drug.
Hydrochloroquine. Yeah. But that kills people if they've got a slight heart problem.
Yeah, no. But it's good to know that there's
anyway.
What's that?
I'll bugger him anyway.
Hey, you're looking at a guy who's had 3 heart attacks and you talk shit like that.
Well, now we know a method of, if we want to get rid of you, we know the easy way. There we go. Thanks, Arno.
Hydroxychloroquine, yeah.
A little bit of that in the tea, you know. So no, that's
the thing is, I mean, it's something that we need to look at all the time. And people, I once did an interview, and the guy actually cut it out, and he asked me, "Why do you do this? Why do you want to help people?" And I said, I don't want to help people. I want to help people to not kill the next snake that they see, because I care about the snakes. I don't really care about the people. And this guy he did not think that was the right answer because of the, all the reach out to work that they're doing and all this. And I just said, you know what? I do things so that people don't kill the next snake. Why do I do snake demos and kids parties?
Oh, hang on. The South African internet. Hang on.
Back.
Cutting out. Hold on. He's on a roll.
He was.
He's cutting out. Hang on. There we go. There's a dropout. So we're everybody in South Africa is now suddenly on the internet. We'll probably have you jump back up to your normal spot now. Hang on. I might have to just. He's coming. I can hear the muffled sounds coming through. Colin, just Rob McMillan, your mate, just asked you to send him that link, please.
Already done it, mate. Already done it.
Did you check your phone? Could you check your phone for me, please?
My phone?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
On Messenger?
Oh, okay.
You didn't get that message I sent you? Just respond to that.
When do you need to?
Oh, dear. I could have asked you that loudly if I wanted to respond. Like, let me just see. Arno might have to reconnect. I'm not sure how to.
I don't know what any of you are.
Let me just see. Okay.
Hey, there I am.
Yeah, he's dropped out. He'll probably call in. That
was good.
Let me just go back. So I hope you guys have been enjoying the show. We had quite a good number, but I think there's only so much people can look at bashing the guy, bashing the. Oh, I'm so glad that I don't have to look at. I'm so glad that I don't have to worry about them knocking on my door tomorrow and carrying on about. Oh, but why were you saying that about us?
Why were you doing that?
Why were you saying that about us on the
Come at me, bro.
On the live feed? Hang on, I just don't have a setup. I just don't have a screen set up for you. Here we go. We're going back. He's back. There we go. You're back. We just need to get the sound connecting. Hold on.
Doing your audio.
There we go. You're back. Can you hear us?
Yes. I don't know what happened there. Maybe Zoom thought I'd said the wrong things. Or
everyone in South Africa check their Facebook.
It must be the government.
Yeah, I can hear you.
It must be the government looking disconnecting this line. We're exposing the truth here too much. So you can hear us, okay? Can't you, Arno?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay. Cool.
Back.
I did send Colin. I know Colin's got a young one there. Like how old's Jack?
7 months.
Yeah, so I know that he can't always stay the full length of the show, but we can always have Arno on again because it's not like you're going anywhere soon. When did they say the restrictions? when did they say the restrictions of yours is going to lift, Arno?
No.
I haven't said anything.
We have a couple of different levels. So level 5 means basically nobody does anything except the essential workers.
Yeah.
And then we've got level 4, 3, 2, 1, and whatever. So exactly how long we're going to be stuck like this, I have no idea. Might be till next year. I don't know.
Oh, that's something to look forward to, isn't it? Bloody
Great
hell.
government you got there.
Jeez. I spoke to a friend of mine in here we go. Colin, how much does a vial of polyvalent cost? Do you know?
I'm an electrician.
Oh, okay. I don't know the cost of it.
I'm sure I'll Google it for you, but
What is so 1,600 rand for a vial of what was it? Polyvalent? Did
I
you
think
say?
it's quite expensive. But like in Australia, we don't, because we've got Medicare. It doesn't cost you a thing.
The government.
But like in America, like if you get bitten
I
by
don't think it costs that.
No,
bitten by a rattlesnake or something like that, and you need anti-venom,
you have to pay.
it's $5,000 a vial. You might need 100 vials to get it under control. So some bites are quite costly to American people, like $500,000, $200,000 in anti-venom.
What's the state of exotic bites in South Africa, Arno?
1,500, there you go.
At the moment, we don't see that many. We have seen a couple where people actually get antivenom from private individuals, and they use that when they get to hospital. We recently had a Bothrops bite, and just before that, we had one of the Reptiles bites, where people actually went to trouble. But we see them occasionally, not that often, and so far, touch wood, nobody's died from them. So I'm waiting for the day that somebody's pet taipan gets out and bites the neighbor's daughter. That would be the end of the hobby in South Africa. They would just stop it. So, we're hoping that sort of thing doesn't happen. And I did push for stricter legislation, but they didn't fall for my idea. The idea was to license people and not the snake, and whole long story, but yeah, it didn't work out.
Ether just said there $1,500 for a vial of polyvalent. That is ridiculous. 1,500 Australian dollars, and you say you said it's 1,600 rand for the polyvalent in South Africa. Man, that's like 160 rand, $160. It's crazy. But in Australia, you don't have to. If you get bitten and go to a government hospital, it's covered by you said Medicare. You said Medicare.
Medicare.
The public, so the government.
South Africans, but
crazy. So I think your feeds, your bandwidth must be, the people must be getting onto the internet now around you, Arno. So I don't know how long this is going to last still.
I've got to go and bath kids and stuff anyway.
Yeah. So
that's fine. We can do it another day, no problem.
Well, we've given it a good almost 2 hour run. We can next time we'll talk more about fun stuff like all the snakes that you keep. But it's sometimes good to air the nasty stuff out of the way first, and then leave the good stuff for the second round.
Do a South African show and tell.
Yeah, South African show and tell. You'll have to show some of the stuff, some of the fancy things that you keep. But thank you.
I'm trying to teach you guys how to get your hobby into order so that you can start exporting stuff to us. That's why.
Yeah. Well, there seems to be a renewed interest in the whole, let's get band together, but I can't feel like it's a little bit misdirected. You need to have the right people, and it needs to be a joint effort between the different states. I mean, it's not gonna take one leader. It's gonna be a group of.
We need a group like they have in America, like US Arc or.
Yeah, but you need people that are willing to put in the time and not just talk. And it can't be, those guys don't do it. The guys that are involved in US Arc don't do it because there's a benefit to them as an individual. They do it because it's a benefit to the bigger picture.
That's correct.
And in Australia, people only get involved in a movement if there's a benefit, if there's some form of I'm getting involved now because I'm affected directly.
I've seen
You know,
like you go to the NARBC expos and you see at the dinner or the auction, sorry, you see like Thai Park, you'll just pay $5,000 for a box of donuts.
yeah. But
for his
he's
table. Then they're auctioning off, and that goes straight to USARC to feed lawyers to stop Lacey Act sort of stuff. So,
but the guys that are actually that are on the ground working for, that are on the board for USARC, the guys like Phil Goss and those guys, they're not big players in the industry. They're doing that because they see the value in in a united front to face it. You don't see Thai Park there. Thai Park would, of course, probably voice up if he's affected by it. The problem here in Australia is people only get involved you need guys that are completely not affected. They are just doing it for the bigger picture, and they're not seeking the accolades for being involved in it. That is the problem. Everybody here wants a pat on the shoulder for being involved. Everybody here wants a pat on the shoulder for being involved in a society like that, and you can't do that. It's probably the same. It's like the same in South Africa. You would have gotten, you would have gotten somewhere because, yes, you have a vested interest in the legislation, but it's all it really boils down to the bigger picture and the future of the industry for people to be able to have a say in how they allowed to keep reptiles. Are you still hearing me? I don't know.
I do Johnny sound.
Hang on. No, he sounds. Hang on. You there?
There we go. Unmuted.
Yeah, sorry, go.
There you go.
Yep. could you hear me though? My little rant that I had? Oh, he's dropping out now. Yeah, no.
All right.
Okay.
Well, people are asking, does he have a Facebook page?
Yes. Just find him on Facebook under Arno Naude. He's on my list of friends as well.
Does he have a company name or?
No. He's just you'll find his profile. He's got a lot of. I think he's got like 2,500 people on his friends list. So if you might just have to do an introduction, just send him a message and say, look, I listened to you on do you mind if you add me on as a friend? Arno's very involved with the venomous and all that type of stuff, all the indigenous. He's a good guy, good sounding board if you want to find out about exotic species and stuff like that. So I just want, he's not around now, but I'm sure he'll watch it as soon as, he's not reconnecting either. So I think the feed's cut out. Colin, thanks again, mate. I know it's a Sunday night. And thank you, Arno. For
people saying, we didn't know there was a show. We'll just be ready. Could happen anytime.
Yeah, okay. Snakebite. Yeah, Arno Naude, Snakebite Assist is apparently where you can get a hold of him. So I just wanted to say thank you for him for coming on tonight. Sorry about the cut out of the line. It is South Africa is notorious for bad internet service, but we'll try and get him on again at some stage. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for watching on a Sunday night. It's not we're trying to get a little bit of international interest into the Reptile News show, and we'll make it. And we'll let you know when the next show is and who we've got on then. Thanks a lot again, Colin.
No probs.
Thanks, mate. Have a good night, guys. See you next.